Hi guys, it's Paula and I hope you are doing well. Before I get started on today's video, I just wanted to thank everybody for showing me so much love and support for my video that I posted a few days ago about how I chose to spend my 12,000 Alta points. The love you guys gave me was overwhelming and it is not gone unnoticed. So thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. Today, however, we are back to talking about worms, which is my newest current obsession. I bet you guys were hoping that my worm video from last month would be a one and done, but it's not. I had told myself that if even one of you had expressed any interest in this topic, I would keep it going, and there was like 5 of you that were interested. So this is going to be my 6-week update of my worms. They arrived at my house on June 2nd and today is July 17th, so it's almost exactly 6 weeks. So here are my updates. So the first update is that my worm operation is growing and I'm still having a ton of fun with it. I just love it. I love it so much. And by growing, I mean that I've decided to start a second bin. So I now have 2 worm bins. I always considered that that might happen. I didn't think it would happen this quickly, but I started a second worm bin. When I purchased the worms, I only bought 500. I knew that was a smaller amount, but I was worried that I was gonna lose interest in it. I was worried that I was going to kill them all. I had a lot of worries and I thought, let me just start on the low end, and if it's interesting and I like it, I'll go from there. And I love it. But I'm not going to purchase more worms. They are multiplying. They seem to be multiplying quite quickly, so I'm just going to let them grow naturally. 500 worms is not nearly enough worms to eat my garbage. I don't know how many worms I would like to eventually have, but I would like to have enough where they can eat all of our food scraps. So all of our fruits, mostly fruit and vegetable scraps, those are the main things, and coffee grounds. So my goal is to grow my little worm situation big enough so that my worms can eat all of the food scraps that our household produces. The reason I decided to make a second bin is because worms have the ability to self-regulate their population. So if they're in a space where there's plenty of room to grow, they will reproduce more frequently, and if they're in a space that's tight and there's a lot of worms, they will actually slow down reproduction and reproduce at a much slower rate. So if I want my worm population to grow, splitting them off into 2 bins seemed like the logical move. In the meantime though, I have decided to start a compost pile outside, which I never thought I was going to do. Over the last 20 years, all of my food scraps just went in the garbage and I never liked it, but I just did it because I didn't see myself having another option. But now that I'm getting into this whole composting thing, the idea of throwing any food scraps in a garbage is like, I can't do it. So I have started a compost pile in my yard as well, kind of like, it's not in the back of my yard, it's kind of actually in the front, but it's in an area that isn't as visible to the public. And so far it hasn't been smelling really bad or anything. I put my food scraps in there throughout the week, and then when my husband mows the lawn on the weekend, he dumps a bag of grass clippings on top of it, and so far it hasn't smelled bad, so that's good. My husband has taken notice of my hobby, and although he is a man of few words and he generally doesn't say anything about any of my crazy ideas or, you know, anything I do, he generally doesn't say much. When he saw I had started a second bin, he did ask where this is going, and he looked a little concerned. And I had to tell him that I had already ordered a new bin, which I will throw a picture up of it here. I ordered it from Costco, and it's a whole nother bin system, different from the bin system that I'm used to. And yeah, so I already have bin number 3 ready to go for down the road when I'm ready to grow again. So I had to tell my husband that I'm not done with the worming and it's gonna keep going. So I will probably eventually be moving my little operation down to the basement for the sake of space and for the consistent climate control in the basement. So for now, they're kind of alternating time between my back porch where there's a ton of shade or my kitchen when it gets really hot, and I want to move them into where it's air conditioned. So I've just been kind of moving them back and forth between the kitchen and the back porch, but eventually they might be living in our basement. So I think that's the long-term plan for them. It's going faster than I thought it would. I will say that. This whole thing has been moving way quicker. I thought it was going to take a lot longer for them to reproduce. I thought this was going to be months and months and months, but here we are just 6 weeks in, and I'm already up to 2 bins. I've already bought a 3rd bin, and I'm kind of obsessed. So over the last 6 weeks, particularly the last 3 weeks, I've been able to see so many worm cocoons. That's what they call the little eggs that the worms make. And inside each cocoon is typically between 3 and 20 baby worms, usually like on the lower end. But it has been so exciting to dig through my dirt and find all these cocoons. I've been loving it. And the 2 bins are very different so far. The original bin is still very wet and mostly made of coco coir, which is a bedding that is commonly used for worm bins. The newer bin is running a little bit drier and it's mostly made of cardboard. So you'll get to see that in the clips that I've added onto this video, and you can see how they look very different from each other. So that's kind of cool. I'll have fun kind of comparing how the 2 bins are performing. A little worm science experiment that I can kind of compare how the 2 bins are doing against each other. The only other thing I wanted to tell you guys about is that I'm a member of these Facebook groups that are all about worm composting, and I have to tell you, there is just as much drama on worm groups as there is on any other group on Facebook. I mean, you would think that a bunch of people that are all members of a group that want to talk about vermicasting would all just be a bunch of nerds who agree on everything, but there's some in-house fighting on these groups that is shocking. For example, somebody posted a couple weeks ago that we should not be using cardboard and paper products for bedding because that could be recycled and reused into more paper versus using something like leaves that you could pick up right off the floor and use those for your worms. And the whole argument was that in general, we're using way too much cardboard and paper products that could be recycled and reused into more paper, and we're not using the resources that we have around us like leaves, which I think was a really interesting argument. And people blew up over that comment. People freaked out. It was like an all-out war about cardboard versus leaves. It was insane. Mind you, just days before, I'd purchased a paper shredder and I was so excited about it. I had found it on like a local buy-sell trade group and I thought I'd gotten a good deal on it, and Hazel and I were having a blast just shredding everything, and we had created like bags of shredded paper and we were having so much fun. And then I saw this post and I had like this unbelievable amount of guilt for shredding the paper when it should have probably been recycled. And so in the end, my new bin was a combination of leaves, cardboard, and coco coir. But there is drama even among worm-loving Facebook groups. So I guess drama just is everywhere you go these days. Hazel does have a lot of fun shredding papers and cardboards. It's like a special skill that she had no idea she had, and she's like my shredder. I just leave a pile of it and she just starts shredding when she wakes up in the morning. So that's been a lot of fun. Okay, so up next is going to be a series of vlog style clips of what I've been doing with the worms since my update last month, what I've been feeding them, how they've been looking, my process of starting the 2nd bin. All that's included in the video. So if you're into that stuff, I hope you stick around and look at what I've been up to. I'm still having a ton of fun and I hope you find this interesting. Thanks for watching. So this is the update I have been patiently waiting for. Today is June 20th and I received my worms on June 2nd. They arrived in the mail on June 2nd. And I think these are worm cocoons, which is what I've been patiently waiting for weeks. And I am so excited. There's one right there, that darker brown, and that lighter yellowy one. There are the 2 worm cocoons. That's a fat one. That's a good looking worm. Okay, so sometime, maybe about a week ago, I buried a whole bunch of food right over here. Look at all those worms. Maybe it was over here. Most of it consisted of watermelon rinds, and they loved it. But I'm not seeing, oh, I bet it was over here. Look at all those worms. There's a little bit of watermelon rind right there. That's a little bit of watermelon rind that's left over. So I'm not really seeing much food left in here. So I am going to prepare some more food for them because we just ate another half of a watermelon. So I'm going to show you what that looks like in just a minute. Okay, so here are my coffee grounds from yesterday. I use the unbleached filters. I don't know if it makes a difference or not, but you can put the filters in the worm bin with the coffee grounds. And here are some watermelon rinds that I'm going to chop up. I did get some, that's coffee grounds. So I'm going to chop these up. You don't have to. Chopped up food just makes it a little bit easier for the worms to process, so they can process it faster. So I am going to chop that up. That's not all of the watermelon rinds we made today. I actually have a lot more. I have this gigantic bowl. Okay, so here is my container with my chopped up watermelon rinds and my coffee filter with coffee. This is probably double what I fed them last time. So this is a lot of food. We'll see. There are signs that I can look for to see if I'm overfeeding them, like too much water in the bottom, or if it starts to smell. So hopefully this isn't too much food. Hopefully they can handle this. We will see. Okay guys, so we're back on my back porch. There's the food, there's my worm bin, and I wanted to show you a bin right there I've pulled out. It's an empty tote, and I think it's going to be worm bin number 2 because I think my worms are eventually going to grow out of this bin. I have dug a little hole in this corner over here, and that's where I'm going to dump the food I've chopped up. Ooh. All right, so I've deposited all of my food in that corner, and I'm going to bury it some with some of the dirt and leaves, and that'll be it. That looks really full. There's not a lot of space for air in here. And I'm still at the stage where I check on my worms every day and kind of move things around so they're getting enough air, I think. But that's one of the reasons why I want to move them to a bigger bin, because as I put in my scraps, the piles get higher. Hopefully everything's okay. It smells really good. I never thought I'd say that. My worms smell really good. So today I decided to start preparing my new worm bin over here, and I wanted to talk about that for a second. I've already had a big whoopsie doopsie, and I don't want to scratch the whole bin, but do you see that hole down there? Yeah. I put a big huge hole in my bin. There's the piece that's missing. I think I'm going to duct tape it back in as good as possible because I don't want to throw away a whole bin and start again. I do have more bins, but I don't want to do that. So what I wanted to show you was that I've been drilling air holes for circulation in my bin and in my lid right here. And then I drilled some holes that are much smaller at the bottom. I don't know if, yeah, I think you could see them in the corners for drainage, just to make sure that moisture doesn't accumulate. All those little chunks floating around in there are the plastic bits that are a result of me drilling. So I have a few more holes to drill on this side before I'm done. The worms can get out of these holes. I'm hoping they won't. I've been keeping my bin outside, and during the day there's enough sunlight out here that they don't want to venture out of the dirt because they don't like the light, and during the night they're under the back porch light. So there's light on the bin all day, every day, and I'm hoping that's going to keep them from escaping. All right, so there's the two bins side by side. So I think you can see the size difference right there. And then as far as the height, it's way taller. So there's just a lot more space in there. They'll have more protection in the bigger space by way of some place to go. Like for example, if I overfeed them in one area, they can flee to another area. Or if one area is too moist or too dry, they can go to another area that's more suitable for their liking. So I'm hoping that a bigger bin will provide all those things for me, because I feel like that bin's already getting really full, and I've only had this bin for like 2.5 weeks now. I think I've put 3 filters full of coffee grounds in there, a bunch of watermelon rinds, some parts of banana peels, and those things take up space. And even though the worms are breaking those things down, they're starting to make castings, and I just feel like the level of that bin is rising and rising and rising. I'm sure they'd be fine in there for a lot longer, but since I had this bin, I thought I would move them over. And if you are wondering, the drill bit that I used for the bigger holes on the top and the sides are the 15/64 drill bit, and the ones that I used at the bottom were a 7/64 drill bit. I'm so excited to be seeing more and more cocoons. There's one right there, one right there, one right there. I'm also seeing a lot of little mites crawling through here. On all of the forums I'm a part of on Facebook, it seems like there's mixed reviews about these little mites that are crawling through bins. They seem extremely common. Some people feel like the appearance of mites are just a natural part of the composting process, and other people seem to talk about how the presence of mites are a suggestion that there might be an imbalance within the bin. Too much acidity, too much moisture, things like that. I'm not sure, but I am just seeing a lot of mites today. I've been trying to leave this bin alone and just let the worms do their job, and I'm trying not to bother them. So I don't know. I feel like there's a mite crawling on my arm right now. Today is June 30th. Tomorrow is July 1st. So I've had these guys for about a month now, and they seem to be happy and healthy when I kind of rummage through the bin. Aside from the mites, the worms are doing good. I have a huge cluster over here because that's where the most food was. Oh, look at that. There's another cocoon right there. Oh, there's another cocoon right there too. Where did it go? Right there. Yeah, very excited to see all these cocoons. The bin still smells very earthy, and that's a good sign. As long as the bin smells earthy and there's not too much water in there, it's probably balanced. I watched a video of somebody who actually spent about a week prepping a new bin before putting the worms in, including dechlorinating the water. So he poured water from the tap and left it out for 4 days to evaporate as much of the chlorine as he could, so that he wasn't using chlorinated water, which is, most tap water has chlorine in it. So that was interesting. I can see the mites crawling all over this thing. There's one. They're super tiny. There's a bunch. I know it's only July 9th, but I have a tree that blooms in the springtime and loses its leaves by mid-July. And so I think I'm going to rake up these leaves and save them for my worm bins, since these are probably the only leaves I will see for the next 2 months. Okay guys, so in here is water. It's tap water that I've had sitting out for about a day and a half to dechlorinate. And hopefully that's enough. I read somewhere that you just need to dechlorinate for 24 hours. So that should be dechlorinated. Over here, I also have Sponge Ease, the perfect potting soil. This is actually cocoa core, which is worm food and worm bedding, but it's hard. It's been pressed into this brick right here, and it needs to be rehydrated. So I also have this old sheet over here, and I am going to use this sheet to kind of hold the cocoa core and soak it in here so that it can rehydrate. I think because I'm also going to be using leaves and cardboard, I don't need a full brick, so I think I'm gonna try and just use half a brick. We'll see if I could break it in half. All right, I was able to break it in half. It wasn't actually me, it was my husband. I couldn't do it, I wasn't strong enough, so he broke it in half for me. So I'm gonna start by soaking this and see how much bedding this yields, and if I need to soak the other half, I will. But if not, I'll save this for my next worm bin. Wink, wink. Okay, I have loosely gathered this bag up with a rubber band. Well, it's not a bag. I've loosely gathered the sheet up and tied it with a rubber band, and I am dropping it in the bucket. I don't know how long it's going to take to rehydrate, but I have plenty of time. So I'm just gonna leave that in there, and I'll check back in on it in a little while. Okay, so it's been a couple hours since I submerged this, and remember I said there was like some room at the top for it to expand, and it is full. It filled up all the space. I've just loosened it so that it can keep growing because it didn't have enough room. So I think it's still soaking up some water. I have moved the future worm bin right next to Kitty's booty. Hi, Kitty. That's the future worm bin, and there's about maybe 2 to 3, I'd say 3 inches of shredded cardboard in there, which is going to be the other part of the bedding. I also have some leaves in the garage that I'll be adding in. So I am going to take a cup, this one right here, and I'm going to fill it up with some of the dechlorinated water that we're using. It's about half full, and I'm going to sprinkle it on top of the cardboard to start getting the cardboard a little bit moist. One of the things I've heard about cardboard is that it can kind of clump, so I don't want that. So I'm hoping if I'm mixing the cocoa core and the leaves in and some coffee grinds, that won't be a problem. Okay, we're in the garage, and here are the leaves we collected from underneath that tree the other day, and I'm going to fill this little hospital tub up with leaves and bring them in for the new bin. All right, we're ready to bring those into the bin too.
Mom,
What's up, Hayes?
Daddy said it was a toy room.
Did you find it?
Yeah, I found it.
Okay, I have a couple of coffee filters full of coffee and a banana or two. I'm not going to put both bananas in here, maybe just one, but the 2 coffee filters. Okay, I've opened up my cocoa core and it looks like it's fully saturated. I don't think it can take in any more water. So I think it's ready to go in the bin too. Okay, so I think my second worm bin is prepped. I need to mix it up still, but in there are my cardboard scraps, my leaves, my cocoa core, a couple of filters full of coffee grounds, and 1 banana peel. I'm going to mix it up really good. If it seems like it needs more moisture, I'll add more moisture, and then I'm going to put it on my back porch for a day or 2. Okay, that is what the bin looks like all mixed up. The banana peel is right around there. I've buried it a little bit. And I like the consistency of the moisture content in this bedding right now. It might be a little bit on the dry side, but my worms right now are a little bit on the wet side. I'll take a look at it again in a day or 2 when I decide to add the worms and see if it needs more water. And I think in the meantime, excuse my messy kitchen. Okay. I am going to save this water. Oh, look at my manicure. I'm going to save this water that I have already dechlorinated, and I use this to hydrate my cocoa core. And I'll save this for added moisture for the water bin if it needs it in a day or 2 when I add the worms. Hi guys, it's transfer day. Here's the new bin. There's the old bin that's been running for a little over a month, like maybe 6 weeks now. And my plan is to transfer half of that bin into this bin and keep that bin going with the remaining half, and then start a new bin with the other half. I'm gonna keep those leaves in that bin since there's new leaves in this bin. And then I'll add some more cardboard to the original bin. So, oh, what else did I wanna show you? I took this burlap cover off of this earlier, and I looked at the lid and I didn't see anything, and this time I pulled it up and there's like 1 baby worm, 2 baby worms, 3 baby worms, 4 baby worms. So there's, I don't think you're gonna be able to see, but oh yeah, you could see right there, the baby worms. So I don't know if they literally just hatched out of a cocoon, or if they were on the top of the burlap and they didn't transfer onto the lid, but I looked and they weren't there a minute ago, and now they're there, so. I guess it's a good sign that the bin's doing okay, but I think, oh, there's a baby worm. Right there. Yeah, oh, baby worm. They're just crawling with baby worms. This lid alone has like 8 or 9 baby worms. So, time to expand the operation, I'd say. So the last feeding I gave the worms was on this edge right here. So I'm gonna leave that side of the bin alone, and I'm going to take this half and transfer it over here. Hopefully no worms will be harmed in the process of this transfer. Let's do it. I'm going to do it all by hand because that's how I do it. I had this idea in my head for a second that maybe I'd count how many worms I have, because this bin started with 500 and I'm feeling really confident that we're over 500, but I'm not going to do that. It just seems like a lot of time that I don't really have, and maybe a lot of unnecessary trauma to my little worms. So I'm just gonna move them all over as peacefully as I possibly can. Welcome to your new home. Sorry guys, I know you're all sleeping. Whoa, so many worms. Oh, one's trying to escape. Move the escapee over here. Oh, another escapee. Come on, buddy. This doesn't smell at all. It smells like a combination of dirt and coffee grounds, which I'm okay with. I like that smell. Whoa. Okay, the final touch is going to be my pulverized eggshells. I've been collecting it in this container, and I'm just going to shake some. It's pretty dusty, but I'm just going to shake some on top of these guys. They will eat the eggshells while they're eating through this material, and it will help their bodies digest the food because they don't have the ability to digest like humans do. So they need a hard substance tossing around in their little stomachs to process the food, like sand or grit or certain soils, and this will do the trick for them. So I'm going to add a little bit to this container in just a minute. Okay, I'm gonna mix this up just a little. I hope you guys like your new home. Okay, that's all I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put the lid on them and leave them alone. Wish them a good night. And then for this bin, I'm gonna do a little bit more to it. Okay, now that I have this extra space in this bin, I'm gonna add some more shredded paper. This is our bag of shredded paper and cardboard. I don't want to completely fill up what I just took out, but maybe a handful or two. That's it. Okay. Now, I kind of want to leave the food where it's at, but mix up the rest of the bin. Is that a blueberry? I think that's a blueberry. There's so many more worms over on this side because this is where the, well, I don't know if there's more, but it feels like there's a lot of worms over here. Felt like there was a lot of worms in the last section too. Hopefully now there will be plenty more room for them to spread out, make some cocoons, repopulate this bin. I'm gonna add some eggshells to this bin, and then I'll leave them alone too. Well, that's a big piece of egg. Okay, that's all I'm going to do for tonight. It's like 9:15 and I gotta go to bed. But I'm excited. Now I can monitor both bins and kind of compare what's going on and how they're doing, and yeah, very exciting. So yeah. Good morning, worms.
Mom, do you want to wake up? Wake up, guys. You need to be a corn.
Do you see the little baby?
No, I don't.
He's right there. And there's that big guy right there. It's actually not morning. It is 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But this is my first time checking on them since moving them over here.
La, la, la.
I've only spotted a couple in the bin, but they seem to be happy and healthy. I'm a little worried that the bin might be a little too dry, but I was worried that my last bin was too wet. I guess there's just no perfect condition in my opinion. So I'll just keep monitoring them and checking on them.
And Mom.
And what? What you doing there, buddy?
And maybe we can make some egg shells because I'm done.
Are you gonna eat some eggs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that.
You're
I'm
on
gonna
my-
eat some 3 eggs, 4 eggs.
That would be great, honey. Okay, and here's bin number 1. I can see some worms up here by the banana peel, eating away. So everybody looks happy and healthy in here as well. I noticed right away when I picked up this bin that it's so much lighter today than it was yesterday. Taking out half of the contents really lightened it up a lot, and hopefully it will give the worms plenty of space to move around and aerate and keep doing what they like to do. This feels more damp, so this is still more damp even though I added a whole bunch of paper in there. All right, guys, so that's it for this month's update of my worm bins. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.